The internet's obsession with nostalgia is doing something to our culture. You've probably seen it online. TikTok slideshows of nostalgic toys set to a Barbie movie soundtrack piece. BuzzFeed articles touting titles such as "Only 90s kids will remember this." Even Facebook posts were posted by grandparents discussing manual roll-up windows and blackboard chalk erasers. It's an internet staple hosted by many generations. They're all saying the same thing, that remembering these things puts you in a club, as if being born between certain years is an achievement. Nostalgic experiences are key in every person's adult life. From recent events only months old to early childhood memories, the internet's archival nature has affected this. Now, old experiences are refreshed in our minds, and those of us who remember these moments become united through shared experiences. While varieties in childhood experiences across generations are natural, the recognition of these experiences has somewhat separated generations by these trivial things. The lexicon of generational terms Gen Z and millennial and the like is becoming increasingly popular as the defining generational experiences become more important to internet users. Generation Z, born between 1997 and 2012, and Generation Y, born between 1981 and 1996, seem to be the most susceptible to nostalgic content, and defining themselves by those memories. Generation Z and Generation Y, also known as millennials, seem to be at odds with each other as millennials grapple with a rising Generation Z as the new adults. A report by Dr. Priyanka Wanda about the gap between these two generations says one notable aspect of the intergenerational dynamics between millennials and Gen Z is the digital divide. Millennials were the early adopters of technology, witnessing the rise of internet, social media, and smartphones. However, Gen Z has grown up in a world that is completely immersed in digital technology. Their fluency with digital platforms and ease of navigating the digital landscape often sets them apart from their millennial counterparts. This difference in digital experience that can create both tension and opportunities for learning and collaboration between the two generations. It's important to note that millennials were the generation to colonize the internet. While this report was organized for effective marketing strategies, it brings up the simple point that millennials braved the internet first and Gen Z have made it their home. While millennials use nostalgia often to stick to what they know for comfort, Gen Z uses nostalgia to explore new aesthetics as they become adults. But how did nostalgia become a key source of comfort for millennials? Millennials are getting a lot of flack on the internet for their emotional reaction to new world changes and generational shifts of power. But it would be a mistake to blame them for it. Millennials grew up in an incredibly difficult environment. Most millennials were young adults around the time of the 2008 housing crisis and market crash. This left them scrambling for a sense of identity as their world, once stable for the adults before them, crumbled. Once promised jobs and houses, millennials struggled in jobs they were overqualified for and lived in undesirable living situations that they overpaid for. It was incredibly difficult to be a millennial in the 2010s. They found solace in nostalgia. The rise of BuzzFeed, Bored Panda, and other hosts of so-called listicles boomed as millennials flocked to their only source of stability, the past. Thus, posts about Zunes, Dunkaroos, and Disney VHS collections flourished. As burgeoning internet users, Gen Z grew tired of these posts, and so we became tired of millennials. While nostalgia has united those who identify with it, it alienates those who do not, and some people feel left out. Now some millennials feel threatened by the rise of Gen Z, because we are other. Now you might jump to the conclusion that millennials are disenfranchised by their struggle compared to Gen Z's new success, but this isn't the case. I myself am part of Gen Z. I was born in 2004. From what I've seen, the internet on the Gen Z side is creating just as much nostalgic content. Most of Gen Z are starting to become adults, myself included. Seeing the struggles of the generations before us, there isn't a whole lot of hope. And as we see ourselves in a similar position as the scrambling millennials, we flock to similar content, although in newer sources. Not only posts about our own past, but our parents' past. Vintage aesthetics are booming. Y2K aesthetics in particular are hugely popular. I would attribute this to a certain Ouroboros of nostalgia. As we were preteens and teenagers, millennials dominated the internet, and we were there to witness it. Old enough to consume, but not old enough to be pioneers of creation, we drank up posts about sidekicks and juicy couture tracksuits. Thus, my generation has glamorized nostalgia from a time that isn't our own. This is why much of the Y2K revolution is not entirely accurate. We weren't there, or some of us were there, but we were busy learning to walk. This is why I think Gen Z style is one of the most hectic and cyclical styles yet. A Washington Post article by Rachel Tashajan discusses the effect of the internet, more specifically TikTok, on the Gen Z fashion world. Over the next 3 years, absurd trends flooded the platform. Night Lux, Coastal Grandmother, and Clean Girl, each with a highly specific set of principles, imagery, and even beauty standards, she says. In the article, Casey Lewis, author of the fashion newsletter After School, is interviewed and says, "Young people always have this desire to go to Goodwill and try on different identities. And maybe we didn't have the same sort of vocabulary to put aesthetics to it, but there's always been the sense of, who am I?" While the issue of fast fashion is an entirely different can of worms, the effect seen in this article is clear. The fast-paced internet world is making trends specific and cyclical. I think this fast-paced nature increases the efficacy of nostalgic content. The internet moves so fast that sometimes we don't have any new content to use and we must reach back. The additional benefit of all the aesthetics from all throughout history being available through your device in your pocket makes this incredibly easy, and so the nostalgia Ouroboros of Gen Z is made. I've explored the different purposes that the internet's use of nostalgia serves between the generations active on the internet, but I want to broaden the scope of what this obsession is doing to the world outside of the internet. As I mentioned, young people often use the internet to look into the past. As we become adults and try to find our identities, we are provided with inspiration from the past in a way never seen before the internet. But it isn't just the young people themselves who know it. Live-action Disney remakes, the Barbie movie, Raven's Home, that 90s show, every Star Wars creation from The Force Awakens to now. Companies know that most people use the internet, and the internet loves older things. This makes sense for companies to profit off of this interest, but why is it so excessive? Sure, they can follow the trend of nostalgia being profitable, but isn't it too much? Where are the original ideas? The reality is, they're afraid we won't like them. When the internet keeps consuming old content, the capitalist strategy is to keep feeding it. Make little changes to convince us that seeing their new show or playing their new game will bring back that happy feeling we had as a kid. But that won't happen. An article by Selma A. Pirak about nostalgia bait from The Conversation says, "Nostalgia itself isn't bad, but we need to remember that we tend to experience it as if it had been repackaged to us as attractive fictions, rather than reachable realities. We had gotten used to consuming old content to try to fill that void, and so have the content creators. Thinking in terms of money, imagine this. A millennial couple has 2 children and they want to see a movie together. Are they going to see a new kids movie, which could be terrible, or a remake of a movie the parents loved? Most likely they'll choose the reboot. Many people will try for the original, but often reboots seem safe. They like the original, so they can find something to like in this. So when we think in terms of profits, the remake is the safest." Now we even see content based on the concept of nostalgia itself. Stranger Things is based off 80s movies aesthetics. The Love Witch is based on old Technicolor art house horror films. And I'm not trying to claim that those are bad, but just the same as Gen Z Y2K fashion. These are examples of content aiming for nostalgia based on nostalgia. Content is eating itself. And we can blame executives all we want, and sure, they are responsible for stifling creatives with new ideas, in favor of making more recycled ideas packaged for the 2020s. But we have to choose new ideas. All of this to say, nostalgia is making us repetitive. Sure, TikTok showed me slideshows of toys I remember, and I get to send them to my sister and laugh about toys that we forgot. But we need to be careful. Think of older generations like the baby boomers. They're infamous for rejecting the new and embracing what they know. I live in fear that the internet is creating a new form of that with my generation. If you take anything away from this, I hope it's the belief in new content. Nostalgia is fun, but becoming an adult takes trekking into new territory. So find your own style, create new ideas. We can't keep cycling like this forever, so go see the new show. Be open-minded to that new trend. Your view and dollar are precious instruments that tell companies and creatives what really matters. And lastly, let's be nice to the new generation. They're gonna have it hard too, so let's welcome them, even if they don't know what a Polly Pocket is.